Welcome back to a Hearthstone Report. We have been couple of weeks into the Saviors of Uldum Meta right now, and some kind of decks and deck strategy are starting to kind of crystallize, and we're starting to see some development in the hierarchy of the power situation of this meta, and we're trying to review that today, give you a little bit of an insight on what's good, what's trending to be good, and what might have been a bit overblown and hasn't exactly performed up to his expectations. So
right now it's still very unstable in the meta, and we still don't recommend to craft anything. Wait at least one more week, I would say.
Yeah, you can see on the screen right there, just to show it off, there's like 20 different decks with a positive win rate. Like everything seems to have positive win rates. And decently positive win rates.
I think a big part here is that, according to HS Replay, there's also like a million different archetypes right now.
The reason that is the case is because a lot of people are playing experimental stuff, and experimental stuff tends to lose if it's bad experimental stuff, which bumps the win rate of established decks or just generally strong decks.
Yeah,
and that's a bit of an inflation there. It's gonna go down a bit. You're not gonna have over 10 decks with a near 55% win rate. That doesn't never happen, but that's gonna settle down. And but we have some structure coming out there for sure that we're gonna try and take a look at. So first at the top you can see tier 1. We have 2 decks, and those are Control Warrior, Murloc Paladin. Now Control Warrior is very much an established idea. We've all seen it before. Some like it, some don't. Some like it a lot. Some really hate it. And it's gotten a bit of an overhaul, at least in as a flavor variety. It still runs most of the core of the old reliable package. Some taunt package has gotten into the experimentation with it, and seems to be performing quite well. Frightened Flunky, we all knew was going to be a good card, but 2 more than Armageddillo are very much a respectable variant to run off. It's not that the old one wouldn't perform pretty good. Also, we've created one by ourselves, which was the greediest one we could possibly make. We had like 10 legends in there. We had Siamat, we had all the top stuff. We ran the Black Knight, Harrison Jones, every tech card we could, just to see what we could get away with, and we had decent success even with that incredibly greedy late game deck.
Although we wouldn't recommend playing that exact list because that was a little too much.
Yeah, as stuff becomes more established, more refined, that might be a bit far-fetched, but you can still get away with a lot of stuff in this control deck, and that clearly shows. And it's just very, very strong and established archetype. I mean, what are you gonna do? I like it. I love playing it. It's fun. I know that people have very strong opinions about it, but that's not my issue to deal with, I guess. Murloc Paladin is one that we theory crafted.
We have Murloc Paladin on 2, which is a deck that we, as you just said, theory crafted a deck list for. Our list was a little more on the classic aggro deck side. This list tends to, for the most part, run 2 copies of Tip the Scales.
Yes.
To then have Nomi at the end, when you inevitably end up clearing your deck very easily with double Tip the Scales, to then profit with like a 3rd push from that.
This is a very nice incorporation of the prismatic lens and Tip the Scales interaction there, because you're running a prismatic lens, pull yourself a Tip the Scales, which then is going to cost the cost of one of your average Murlocs, which is usually around 2 mana.
2 or 3,
which is insane, obviously. First Tip the Scales is best case scenario happens turn 4, turn 5, very, very early, usually turn 5. You pull out a full board of Murlocs. A lot of decks are not going to be able to deal with that, and if they do, you hopefully are going to pull off that Tip the Scales before turn 10 hits. And if nothing else suffices to actually win the game, you have Nomi over the top, which it's a very solid idea for sure.
Yeah, and these decks also tend to run, as we already predicted, Sir Finley Murgleton, or rather Sir Finley of the Sands. And also, interestingly enough, I've seen certain varieties of this also run Zephyrus, because it's just really strong, and because of how fast you empty your deck, you will get a chance to make use of the Battle Cry.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because after quite a quick while, usually by turn 10, oftentimes this deck doesn't really have duplicates, doesn't have many cards in their deck to begin with, and then those really strong Battle Cries definitely make a lot of sense.
And of course, talking about no duplicates, a very successful deck from the new expansion that is pretty much entirely new archetype is Highlander Hunter.
And something that we wasn't necessarily expecting. We didn't see Bran being that strong.
I mean, one big argument, at least right now, is that Bomb Warrior is only 10% of all warriors. If Bomb Warrior increases again, then the Highlander decks are going to decrease a little bit in win rate.
They're going to go down very much so. But this seems to be performing really, really well, because you can get, I want to say, top value or highest potential value out of cards that are indirectly geared to the Highlander standard, like Subject 9 and Zul'jin, for example.
Yes.
They play with this, they play the Highlander archetype better than anything else.
Secret Hunter kind of inherently doesn't hate being a singleton archetype, and now with Bren at the top end, it's finally justified to actually build it that way. And
you get Zephrys in all of those decks.
Zephrys is
in the phenomenal
the reason why Highlander is an archetype at all.
And you have a lot of strong legendaries to make up the difference, sort of thing.
Yeah. Control Mage is a bit more of a kind of a classical approach to Mage in a way. It still uses the Conjurer's Call and Khadgar and Giant package. I mean, it's pretty much the old, like, high-end Mana Cyclone variety of Conjurer's Mage, except that this one doesn't use the small spells as much. But the playstyle seems pretty straightforward, and I think for everyone who has played the Mana Cyclone Conjurer's Mage, this might be a deck to switch to in the near future.
Yeah. Murloc Shaman is something fairly established, one of the old guard sort of decks that came right into this expansion and still seems to be very viable. You got an all-time great package in Shaman right now for Murloc synergies. You gotta say, with cards like Sludge Slurper, Underbelly Angler, and of course the Evergreen neutral Murlocs. This deck's gonna stick around. There's no reason to believe why it wouldn't. And it's one of the stronger aggro decks since Rise of Shadows just first appeared and still is. I don't think much is going to change about that. And some refinements can be made with overload packages in this one, since more synergy has been released for that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, this version runs neither the Shudderwalk Agatha package nor the overload package in most deck lists right now. It seems to be focused more on a quote-unquote pure Murloc Shaman.
Straight up Murloc, yeah.
But it seems to work well, and the overload synergies seem to be more focused on the dedicated overload Shaman, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yes. Then we have Secret Hunter, which is, it's fine. It's sort of in the looks like a bit in the shadows of the Highlander Hunter, because it runs mostly the same package. But Secret Hunter, we've historically seen as a very has been a very successful archetype ever since Subject 9 was released, and then Zul'jin, of course, strengthened it ever more.
Yeah, and Hyena Alpha as a new addition, as well as the new Pressure Plate Seeker, which is arguably really strong, and also has another thing that you don't have to play around. Makes the deck more versatile than ever.
Stronger in practice than we expected it to be in theory when we reviewed it, and actually that's the case for most people, I think. Big Spell Mage is the next one, and you're seeing a lot of Hunter and Mage here, because that's classes that a lot of experimentation is being done with. And so far, they seem to have... You like Hunter and Mage?
Yes.
Alright. They seem to have been quite successful. I don't think that 3 or 4 archetypes of the same classes are going to stick around the way that they are, because the better one... Because a lot of those you have slight differences, to be honest. A lot of those don't differ by that much, but they're categorized differently by specific certain details.
Categorization is, by the way, also another issue with the current state of the meta, where HS Replay is always one of those sites, and we're using this right now because it has, like, arguably the biggest data set to work with right now, but it always has the problem where during a new expansion, the lines between archetypes are a bit flimsy, and sometimes you look into, like, the specific decks that are listed for an archetype, and one fits another archetype better than this one, but because of a few overlap core cards, they'll all of a sudden be miscategorized.
Which leads to a degree to so many different archetypes but the same class being high rated. In reality, those decks are very similar, do very similar things, and go against very similar targets. And some of that's going to unite and kind of form together into different sort of ideas that will probably top out at about 2 decks per class at best. In the higher tiers of the meta.
Especially stuff like the Big Spell Mage and the Control Mage having both kind of relying on Ferris and the top end a little bit. Yeah.
And the Dragon Mage, as you can see down the list there too, to a high degree. I think a novelty, okay, we have Mech Hunter, which kind of carried over. Still decent aggro that goes high, but a bit of a novelty there is the next interesting one is definitely the Aggro Warrior that you're seeing at the bottom there, as you can scroll down a little bit. Something that hasn't necessarily been seen much. Warrior... for a long time has been all about control and slow play and value in the higher tiers of competitive Hearthstone for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, which is kind of inherent to the class in that both it has a lot of strong control tools in its core set,
as well as control focused hero power.
And and then the armor hero power, and I think that it's because of that it's relatively hard to build an aggressive warrior deck because you really need a lot of support from the expansions for that.
The last time top of the notch aggro warrior, and I'm talking about the pirate days, came to be was when there was I wasn't even around then, but JJ was when a certain Sir Finley Murgleton enabled that class to get an aggressive hero power.
Yeah.
Out of
and it didn't hurt that a certain someone being in charge was a very overpowered thing in general.
The gadgets and days, man. That was the good days though. That was the roaring 20s of Hearthstone. Now we're just looking at history, but you had to have been there to experience the patches.
Next up we've got Highlander Mage, which is kind of once again the same idea as Control Mage, but using Reno. Right now it seems to be less consistently good than Control, but Zephyr is definitely a strong card. Reno is a good control tool, so it's gonna be one of the two.
Zephyr is a crucial card that was printed with this expansion because most of the explorers themselves are not enough to justify constructing full Highlander deck. The explorers plus Zephyrus value in those Highlander decks at this point seem to balance it out to enough of a degree where it's justified to play over full varieties that aren't restricting themselves to a copy of card.
Yeah. Also, just quick side note, it's very fun right now in Wild. There is, for Highlander Mage, there's quite a few options because you've got the original Reno, you've got the new Reno, you've got Kazakus, you directly have Ink Master, and you have a lot of cards that actually profit off of single.
A lot of stuff, actually, so very, very fun for sure. Zoo Warlock is sort of not necessarily a novelty, but there's new packages to it, as happens to this deck a lot. I think Warlock makes good use of creativity. We had a heal package for a while during the Frozen Throne days.
Now we have the opposite.
Yeah, now we have the damage package.
Which is
got Diseased Vulture in there.
The one that we most underrated, I think, because we have Neverset Thrasher, we have the Diseased Vulture, and then we have the good old Crystallizer, which technically deals damage. And that's the one thing that we kind of overlooked.
Turns into more of a mid-range-ish sort of idea. Whereas when we built ours, we went all out. We went Lackey package all the way. We went the most aggressive thing that we can. Yeah, the most aggressive thing that we could come up with, which is still that's fair enough.
It performs really well still. I still have I think 62% win rate with the Zoo Warlock that we showcased on the channel before, and I think it's definitely playable. But I do think that maybe the damage package will take the slight edge at the end.
For sure. And now we get into some of the decks that still have very high win rates right now, but might be a little bit inflated, and this is kind of where it starts cutting off after a while. I don't think that necessarily things like Quest Priest and like Common Priest Quest Paladin are going to be sitting at 53% win rate in a month.
Yeah.
But those decks right now are still very much viable. Quest Paladin this to me is one of the most suspicious ones, actually.
Yeah, I still don't know what to think about it too much. I don't see really the win condition that much, which is the problem.
See, I like Quest Priest as more of a promising thing than Quest Paladin in the long run. And Quest Priest is obviously lower.
Yeah, so also like Wall Priest and Combo Priest, interestingly enough, two decks that have a similar idea of how they want to win, but kind of a different method how to get there. And I would think that Wall Priest is more consistent, but right now the numbers say Combo Priest is better at it.
We're looking at Bomb Warrior, Token Druid as established decks. Bomb Warrior barely changed at all. It's very much the exact same, hasn't adapted much. And you kind of hinted already at its counterbalance with the Highlander decks. As they become more important, this one will become more important to keep those in check. And in that case, aggro will become more important to keep Bomb Warrior in check. So there's a pretty good effect going on there.
Yeah.
Token Druid is something that's already been established pretty early on in the Rise of Shadows days.
And through the Snip Snap update, or generally the Rise of the Mech update, has gotten a complete overhaul in a more mech-themed direction, and it still seems to be the strongest version right now.
That's true. And Quest Wall Priest, okay, fair enough. We just hinted at that before. I like the Priest quest as a more reliable option than the Paladin quest, but we'll have to see.
Aggro Overload Shaman is a very interesting deck. It tries to make use of the Overload package, I think a little too much in the versions that we've listed here, where it's almost entirely Overload cards. Mm-hmm. There is, of course, the payoffs of like Lickim and Vicina. I still think that due to them running Murlocs, it would be good if they ran a little more Murlocs. Specifically, War Leaders seem to be lacking in most of these lists.
Yeah. You have Sludge Slurper, which is, by the way, an absolute key card for the class of Shaman.
Yes.
In every deck, one of the underrated heroes of the entire class right now. No War Leaders is a bit surprising to me. That's correct. But then again, you only run 3 Murlocs and the Soul. But you have the Spirit of the Frog. You have a lot of the small damaging spells. The idea is definitely there, along with Vicina and Double Bloodlust in most cases.
Yeah.
And then finally Tempo Rogue to close it out for
Tempo Rogue has a few different varieties. There is a Thief Rogue, a Tempo Rogue, and a Quest Rogue around right now, according to HS Replay.
Yeah.
All
there's a Highlander Quest Rogue, I believe. With Rogue, it becomes very, very blatant that a lot of these things are going to combine into one certain idea with different variants, and spoilers, it's going to be Tempo. It's going to be an aggressive rogue.
With the quest, for
likely
sure.
With the quest.
Potentially with Tess up top, but probably not even that.
Probably doubtful. Definitely not as a requirement. And that's how Rogue has always looked.
But it doesn't look like Rogue is that strong this expansion, which, I mean...
Praise the Lords.
I don't know what you have against Rogue, but...
I don't like Rogue anymore, man. It's just too tough. It's a podcast topic almost, but I still hate mages the most, but I do not appreciate Rogue that much. It's just not fun and interactive, which is what Hearthstone's supposed to be.
Yeah, says the Warrior player.
Hey, Warrior is a fantastic class. I'm gonna fight you on the side of the street for saying that. Let's quickly glance over tier 3. We're not gonna go through stuff, but there's a little bit of just an overview of what stuff is going on. Quest. Experiment. Yeah. Early phases. Secret Mage. Praise be.
That seems surprising.
Not oppressive. Praise be. It's fantastic. Holy Wrath Paladin. Fun stuff. Quest Warlock.
Quest.
Yeah. Don't give me Quest Warlock. Don't give me any of that stuff. So.
Yeah. I feel like just the fact that the entirety of tier 3 and 4 is basically quest decks tells you a lot about people just wanting to make those quests work, basically. And they just
the exact point I've made in the beginning. Those decks is what feeds the top tier 1, tier 2 high win rates, which are not going to stick around.
At the end of the day, anything that has that's under token druid, you can basically forget for the future. Maybe even some of those the
tier 1 win rates still are also very high at the almost 58%. We don't really see a lot of stable metas where the top decks have a win rate of over 55%. Now, the Control Warrior most recently has been a bit of an outlier, and definitely if you remember back to the Odd Paladin days, but that was the absolute extreme that we have seen.
And of course, if you have a deck that is that oppressive, the meta will shape around that, specifically with counters to that as well, meaning that we will see, just by virtue of that, the winner of that deck drop a little more as well.
I wanna go ahead and say that we'll actually never see a stable meta with a deck of a 60% win rate or more ever again in Hearthstone. That wouldn't be interfered with. I think that was the one and only time we've seen that, and that with the Odd Paladin, that's not going to happen again.
I think they're going to have a bit of an eye on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because we've seen the amount of action they have taken even last expansion. There was different nerfs, buffs, new stuff introduced, and they're keeping up with their game, which is all that we can ask for. By the way, that's great. We like that. Meta adjustments are always great. As long as they don't ruin Warrior, I'm fine with it. I love playing Control Warrior, but I also do like me some Quest Shaman and experimentation, and a lot of this stuff is also going to be relevant for our budget series, obviously, which is going to be coming out hopefully starting in a couple of weeks. As soon as the meta settled a little bit, we've gotten done doing our research. We're already thinking about it, obviously.
I mean, we've already been playing around with decks, first of all for our personal play, for other videos on the channel, and some of those might lend themselves to budgetization, some of them might not. We'll see. But
a lot of fun to come up. So go join our Discord server. Link to that is in the description, of course. TrashcanTV Discord server. Fun place to be, to hang out, talk with some Hearthstone folks. Got over 100 people in there who are passionate about the game just as we are. It's a great place to get better together. So go ahead and do that. We'd appreciate to welcome you there. And drop a like on the video. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. The road to 2,000 subs is on, and we're going to have some special stuff planned for that. So until then, we're going to see you in the next one. JJ.
That's it.
That's it.